Okay, this one's on changing one of the elements in an electric furnace. Now, these are your elements here, and I've got this whole assembly pulled out. Now, if you've looked at some of the other ones on on electric heat, you've seen the other side of this thing. This is actually inside the furnace. You have to take your wires off, and you have to take this whole thing out to get to it. Depends on the furnace how you actually get to the elements. Some of these things do have elements that you can remove without removing the entire assembly. Sometimes there's just a carrier that pulls out. But that's the way this one is. This is a carrier unit. And so I'm going to show you if you had one of these elements that had failed. And they almost always fail right in the middle of these insulators here. And because that's the hottest part of them. If they have sagged a lot, if they've sagged way down and maybe they've shorted with something, you probably have a chronic limit switch problem or something like that, or not enough air or something, because they really shouldn't sag very much. They should stay pretty much up like this. Now, there are some that are different than this that use very large diameter coils. I suppose you can get elements for those. I have not seen them. What I'm going to be using here today is called a restring kit, and I'll show you that in a sec here. Okay, this is a restring kit here. Now it's just coiled nichrome wire. It's called nichrome because it's a nickel chrome alloy that will go to high temperatures without burning out. It comes compacted like this so that the coils are very close together, and what you do is you stretch it out to the correct length, and I'm going to show you how to do that here in just a sec. Okay, say we're going to take this top one out. Okay, now let's take a look at these insulators. Okay, this is what they look like. Get the other side of them. Damn it. Okay, these insulators look like this. They sandwich together like that, and the sheet metal goes between them. So when you're working with these things, make sure these things aren't all busted up. They usually just kind of fall apart when they come off if there's a problem. And when you're putting them back together, be sure that's not caulked or anything like that, because if it's caulked, it'll break and that's busted and you're done. There are replacements for these that usually come with the kits. Whether it'll fit yours or not, it's hard to say, but there usually at least is a couple of these things. There's also a fuse with the new one. I don't have any of the fuses here right now, but that fuse, this one doesn't use fuses, but if there is a fuse in it, you have to use that fuse too. Okay, let's go ahead and pull this element out. Okay, looks like we're ready to pull this out. So I'm going to pull these out of here like this. Now, you note here that one piece of ceramic is broken off there. So in the case of this, I don't think I'd do this kind of repair on this thing unless I had a spare one of these, and I used to keep a few of those floating around just in case I needed them for something like this. But this, I don't think I'd replace it if I had cracked ones I didn't have replacements for them. Okay, now I've got the element out, and if it was broken, which obviously it would be, I would just wrap wherever it's broken right there. I'd go ahead and wrap the wires together. Don't stretch it out too much, because this, you're going to use this to get the proper length on the new one. Okay, now I've got these two together. Now this one's actually smaller than this one. Here again, I probably wouldn't use this because the diameter is quite a bit smaller than the other one. It might work and it might not. I don't know. It kind of depends. But I would try to get something that's reasonably close to the same diameter as the other one. Now, I'm going to take this out, holding these together like this. Now you see, I've got this right here. How much difference that is? Okay, I got to stretch this other one out to that length. Okay, if you can see what I've done, I've taken and put both of these things under my shoe. So I can stretch out the old one, and I'm going to come up to where that would be. Now you can see it comes up to here. Now the other one's not going to come up that high. I got that pretty well stretched. Hopefully you can see this okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and stretch this other one out. And I want it the same length as this one, but a little bit shorter, like maybe 5-6 inches shorter. So I stretch it, and a little more. I stretch it. Maybe a skosh more. Okay. Now, I've started out. I'm going to start this out a little bit shorter because I want to be able to stretch this wire when I put it in. If I don't have it tight, the new one tight, then it's going to sag. Okay, now when we start this, we're going to start it right here. Now here again, most of these restring kits, they're going to have a bolt mounted permanently to them. I wouldn't use this because this is just an end. I'd have to wrap it around, and it's probably not going to work well. So the restring kits actually come up with a bolt that's mounted here. I'll show you that. You can see on the old one they've actually welded it in there on the end of the bolt, and that's how they should be. Okay, I'm going to start stringing this thing in. I start in the middle like this. Then I go through like this. Now I'm making adjustments on this thing so I'm about even on both sides. Don't have to get real picky on it, but it should be fairly close. Now you can see the wires are a little bit, they're not quite there. So when I go to pull this through here, I'm going to pull this tight, and then that gets the rest of them tight. Make sure you get the tension pretty much the same on all sides. Do the same thing over here. Just keep going until you get them pretty even, and then they fit up against there. When you first fire this up, these things are going to be pulling like a son of a gun on here, and you're going to think, oh God, this thing's going to pull itself apart or something. They lose their tension immediately when you start the element, and they settle down. So there shouldn't be any problem. But make sure you start in the center, go around through there. You notice all these things are all bent over. They should ease up when I fire this element up. You won't be able to see it unless you pull a blower off or something to look up in there, but it will work. And like I told you, I wouldn't do it on this one because that one ceramics broke. It probably still would work, but not very well. Okay, that's how you restring those things. And just again, these things usually come with a bolt on the end. The reason I had this one laying around is because it didn't have a bolt in the end, and so I never did use it for anything. But these elements, you can find them in parts houses and appliance stores. They're almost all of them 5 kW, and you're looking for the correct diameter wire and 5 kW. If that's what your element is, there are a couple of 2.5 kWs out there and so on, but most of them are going to be 5. Get the right size wire in there. Make sure the ceramics aren't trashed. Make sure everything's tight when you're done. Make sure all the terminals that are hooked up where you put these back in, make sure they're tight. Don't get real crazy on these or you can break them. But make sure everything's good and tight. And fire it up. Check it out with your ammeter. Check out the sequencing on it. Be sure the elements don't stick on when you're done, and make sure the limit switches work okay. Disconnect the fan. Turn on the heater. Limit switches should shut it off. Just clamp your clamp meter on the incoming line, and you can watch them drop out. They should all drop out actually pretty quickly. Doesn't usually take very long. Okay, that's restring. Now, do you always have to restring? Or can you always restring? No. Certainly ceramics broken, you're not going to restring. Couple of manufacturers use a real large diameter wire. I think Train and Goodman, that I recall, uses that. I'm not sure if you can get those or not. I've never had a Train fail. I've never had one that the element failed in it, so I've never had to replace one. But some of them may not be suitable for this. An awful lot of these have round ceramics right here that you feed them through, and they work really well with that. Looking at this thing now, probably the diameter of the wire, where I said the diameter was a little small, I don't think it'd make any difference. I think it'll work fine. So the only thing wrong with this is that ceramic. So that is it. You can fix them up real cheap, 10-12 bucks for those things last I knew, maybe a little higher now. Compared to an entire heat kit, a lot of times they'll say, well, you got to just replace the whole heat kit. That means sequencers, everything else, 100 bucks, 150. This will get them going that day. So that's restringing electric elements.